In time of economic crisis, when the finance minister goes before parliament and there's a mid-year budget review, it takes on even more added significance than it would in an ordinary period. We are not in normal times. And so when the finance minister went to parliament today with the mid-year budget review, we all paid attention. And if you missed it, let me go through quickly for you. I know many of you were working, you haven't paid attention to the key points. I want to now go through it and break down for you some of the key highlights of what he said today, because he has an impact on you and our survival, our collective survival as a people. So what did he say today when he went to the before Parliament? Now, one of the key things, we all know we are in a crisis. The finance minister accepts that we are in a crisis. So he assured on behalf of the president that they will do whatever it takes to get us out of this. But I find it very interesting. For the very first time, the finance minister put a timeline to it, right? So we've all been asking the question, yes, we're in crisis. How long is it going to take us to get out of this crisis? For the first time, he gives us a sense of how long it's going to take. He says 2.5 years. 2.5 years. That he will turn the economy around in 2.5 years. Was he being overambitious, knowing where we are and the kind of challenges that was facing? So if you missed it, this is one of the key highlights of this. The finance minister communicating the government and the president's determination to turn around the current economic crisis in 2.5 years. One of the key questions we'll be asking our panelists is this realistic? And we'll be joined later on at 9:30 by Bright Simmons, who's been analyzing this. We'll put this in some context for us when we do this analysis. And then he also says we are not seeking, and before he went to the House, many thought he was simply going to ask for more money, right? Many thought so, experts had predicted. But he went today and says, we're not asking for more money. Normally you say supplementary estimate. He's going to ask for more money. Okay, so we started off thinking we're going to spend X amount. I mean, in the midst of the crisis, we are not raising enough revenue. Remember that e-levy, and he didn't mention e-levy once. I mean, that in itself is an interesting one we'll talk about. But e-levy is not giving us as much. But he says, I don't want more money. I am going to live within my means, which is quite refreshing to hear from a finance minister. For the first time, he says government will stay within its means for 2020. Whatever we said in the 2020 budget, when we read the main one, he says we are going to stay. We are not going to borrow. We are not going to, well, not even say borrow. We are not going to ask for more money. We're going to stay within what we had budgeted for. So that is refreshing. And so how exactly is he planning to do this? Because it's a long time since we heard any finance minister say that we will live within our means. He says that they are going to rely on the windfall from upstream petroleum sector. The windfall finally basically is, you remember in the midst of the crisis, one of the benefits of this crisis, if I can call it so, is that the commodity prices have shot up. And one of the key commodities we export is crude oil. And what it means is that we are getting more money from the crude oil than we normally will get with what we had projected the price of crude will be because of the Ukraine, mainly because of the Ukraine and Russia, the Russian invasion of Ukraine. That has gone up. So we're getting extra money from there. That's a windfall. And he's saying that you're going to use that amount we'll spend within that because that's something we didn't plan for that we are getting. Right, amount we didn't plan for that we are getting. So we are going to spend that instead of asking for more money from Parliament. So that's how he intends to do this. But these are some of the interesting growth figures. One of the key things you notice is that we missed a lot of our targets. Growth rate was projected last year at 5.8. He's revised it down to 3.7. Inflation was 8%. This is really fascinating. 8% inflation. That was what he read to us in last year. Now look at where we are currently, and this is conservative estimate. We are way above this. I'm pretty sure by the time that the statistical service comes up with the next one, we see that it's gone up. Fiscal deficit is 7.4. We are 6. We revised it to 6.6%. International reserves, and this is an alarming one. There was some controversy in the House last week. I didn't quite get clarity on this from him. I was expecting to hear him be very clear on where we stand with our international reserves. We didn't quite get that clarity. So maybe my guests who are both on the finance committee will help us with that clarity on where we stand, because this is really that is what it comes down to. When your foreign international reserves depletes to unsustainable levels, that's when you know. Ask Sri Lanka, they'll tell you what happened there. You can't import your crude, etc., etc. So that then it becomes an apocalyptic situation. So I was hoping to get some clarity. Hopefully we will get that. Revenue, right? We have budgeted, a revenue of 100 billion. We are now doing 96. That's a 3.7% reduction in revenues we had projected. We had again expenditure. So that's a good bit of it. But what we are spending less. We project to spend 137.5 billion. We are spending slightly less than that in 135.7 billion. That's 1.3% less than we projected. So when he says, when we spend within our means, that's what he's saying. We are going to spend less than we had actually said we will spend. That's what a poor man does. When you are poor, you don't have money, you start cutting your code according to your size. Interest payments, though, has ballooned. And this is no surprise, because it's not surprising that we are seeing this. Why? Because early in the year, we saw that, all the Fitch and others began to downgrade us. That had an impact. And so we are paying far more than we planned, which is a big deal. And total deficit now is also climbed up slightly at 5.14% more than we thought. Now, some of the key flagship programs, though, we are aware of the reported challenges facing free SHS, but government was clear today, finance minister was clear today that they won't touch a free SHS, right? The government is committed to running the free SHS. Is a key policy of them. But this for me was key. NAPCO, an announcement on 1st of September, NAPCO will be no more. And he says that the beneficiaries will now have to go under the U-Start program, 100,000 of them, because we've already spent 2.2 billion in that. That's a lot of money. For a country that is struggling right now, that's a place that you can cut, and then everybody else can go under the 100 million beneficiaries can go under U-Start, the finance minister said today. But there are some revenue measures that the finance minister wants to introduce, existing ones, but enhanced. So the EVAT, digitalization of our revenue mobilization process, will be done. So you start paying EVAT. There will be upfront payment of VAT also on importers not registered with VAT. Implementation date is 1st October. So that's a key thing. We want to raise more money. Extension of waiver of interest and penalty to December 2022. So those are key revenue measures that we will see. Also, we are going to see property rates, property tax. It's also going to start. The finance minister talked about that. Property rates will start this year, sometime in the next month or so. And then phase one of the Sino-Hydro deal, we expect this to come. But this is an interesting one because we expect to still spend money in this area. The Chinese, they are hoping will give us 2 interchanges, 442 kilometers of roads. Other road projects, 6 other road projects, various stages of completion, also expected to come on stream. But a key announcement today, and if you didn't follow, is that tolls, road tolls will return. But it will return for specific roads built under a public-private partnership. One of the key ones immediately will be the Kratama motorway. That the government is they're now at the procurement stage to get a private developer to do it. The private developer wants their money back. The way to get it is to toll that road. And when they'll toll it, they'll make the money back. So yeah, tolls were abolished, but it's going to come back. The finance minister was clear that not only Accra Tema motorway, other roads built like this will all be tolled, he said. Minorities' concerns, government. And this is a key thing that we need to get to the bottom of. The minorities alleged today that in the hard copy document that was submitted, government borrowed more than 22 billion of fresh CD notes, right? Which in essence, they say is quantitative easing, which is the central bank printing more CDs. And the allegation is that the central bank has printed 22 billion CDs and without parliamentary approval. So what happened to the e-levy? This is mid-year by the review. And yet the finance minister was silent on where we are with the e-levy that was supposed to be our savior. Obviously hasn't, but he was quiet on that. I'll get my guest to chip in very quickly. I'm going to take a quick break. When I return, former Deputy Finance Minister Kweku Rikiti is my guest. Also joining me is Dr. Stephen Amwa. And then at 9:30, we would have Bright Simmons also join us with his thoughts on the media budget review. Stay with me.